Hello, my name is Rhonda Pownell, and I'm the mayor of Northfield. It is Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, a day after our regular city council meeting. Last night, our public works director and city engineer, David Bennett, gave the following presentation to the city council, our community members that were in attendance, and those that were watching the meeting live streamed through our city website. This presentation answers questions and provides a thorough report into our 3 recent significant unrelated issues at our wastewater treatment plant. There are 3 important points that I'd like to make related to the update that we received. First, we are taking very seriously our responsibility to provide a healthy community by effectively managing our wastewater. Our most recent event required a last resort option of discharging primarily untreated wastewater into our beloved Cannon River. I can assure you that I, along with my council colleagues and city staff, take our stewardship of our natural resources seriously as we manage our community waste collection and treatment systems. Secondly, we are taking action. City staff work diligently around the clock to stabilize our treatment operations. Additionally, staff are exploring a formal, independent study to review our policies and procedures to ensure we are operating within industry best practice standards. Lastly, we are continuing to invest in our wastewater treatment facilities. After insurance, the city's cost is $200,000 out of a total cost of repair and reinvestment into the facility that's estimated between $5.1 and $6.2 million as a result of these incidents. This investment includes major equipment that have been planned for replacement in 2021. We are exploring options to accelerate other facility enhancements as a result of this project being completed earlier than anticipated. Our formal capital improvement plan will be updated to prioritize these projects. Later this week, the City Council and our local media will be getting a guided tour by city staff to see firsthand what has happened with the event and our repairs and ongoing efforts that are underway. Next week, we have a City Council meeting again on Tuesday, July 17th, where we'll be getting more information on the causes of the fire and the responses we'll be taking as a result. More information will be made available at that time. In the meantime, if you have additional questions, I would encourage you to contact Public Works Director David Bennett. You'll find his contact information displayed at the end of this video. In closing, thank you for taking the time to understand more about the operations at our wastewater treatment plant, and for taking the time to hear about our recent challenges and proactive responses that we've been taking to address these very important issues. Northfield is a community that cherishes the health and well-being of our families, friends, and neighbors, and that includes our neighbors in our surrounding communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. So staff has prepared a presentation, some slideshow, and Mr. Bennett will walk through that on the wastewater incidents, focusing primarily on the most recent incident, but also doing a recap over the last 2 incidents as well. So thank you.
All right, Mayor, members of council. So certainly 2018, we've had 3 incidents at our wastewater plant. So we'll walk through each one of those and talk about them, where they're located within the plant and what occurred to provide clarity and openness on what's going on at the plant. So this is just an aerial photo of looking down at the wastewater plant. So if you start maybe, 2 o'clock, top right, the pretreatment building, kind of where the mouse is. So this is our most current event that happened last week in the evening of July 2nd, moving into July 3rd. So in our pretreatment building, so that's our first process building at the facility, moving around counterclockwise. So the first incident of the year was in the BAF, Biological Aerated Filter Building, separate building. That's the second process at the plant. And then we also had in May the fire located in this building is our Biosolids sludge processing facility. So again, this isolates the most recent incident that occurred in our pretreatment building here last week. So in the lower level of the pretreatment building, we have a room for the sludge room, which pumps the sludge over to our sludge holding tank. So this is an image on the left that shows during where the basement filled up with roughly 5 feet of water around that. You can kind of see on the left picture, the ladder that kind of illustrates it, and the level is a little bit lower than where it was at. And on the right, it illustrates it coming down and showing, one of the pumps that are located within that area. And again, also illustrating, I can do that on the next one. So during this, electrical components go underwater. Typically when electrical components are going underwater, they all need new wiring, and everything needs to be replaced with the controllers and those types of items. So again, on the left is during the incident, and on the right is after. So what happened, if you look on the left picture, you'll see that gray. That's a PVC pipe. That's a joint. It failed. It came apart, leading, and I can have it showed on the next picture. So when that pushed apart, what that did is where it comes, it actually broke the vertical pipe that went up. So it cracked that pipe when that joint failed. So that's what caused the water to get down into the basement to cause the issues. But that was just the start, really. When that broke, when we came on site, that was about 8 p.m. that night. We thought it was fully contained within there, so we didn't think we were going to be having any sort of discharge at that time. This is just more pictures of some of what was done post, right? So we got the joint put back together. We've added restraints to it to restrain the joints while we're looking into the permanent repair fix for that piping. So that was the basement. So this is upstairs. This is a picture of our clarifier. So in the left picture, there's 3 hatches there. So we have 3 primary pumps in there. And what happened was when that went underwater, we started to have these, even though the pumps are on the wall down in the basement below, these pumps in the pit started to fail. So we were having the pumps would stay on and then they would come off. So we could not keep up with the incoming flow. So ultimately we got inundated where we couldn't keep up, and we had to discharge from the site. Once we got the pumps pulled, checked them out, and got the pumps online, so from about 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. Until the pumps came back line, we were discharging from the plant. So not only out a pump, but right out the doors that's open on the end of the building.
Just to add to it, is a redundant system, so we need one of the 3 pumps to be working in order for the plant to be functioning, and we had all 3 that went out.
So another picture in the lower level. So these are the controls for the pumps in the basement. So all those controls and the wiring have been replaced to keep them operational. So there's other repairs with electrical components going on down there, but those 3 controllers have been replaced. So where we're at, the new control panels, they're about $5,000 each. We don't have the numbers on the cost, so $10,000 to $30,000 to probably redo the wiring, and then there'll be costs related to restraining the joints. That's our temporary fix. We're looking at that to see what the permanent fix is. We're not sure if that piping was there actually when the plant came online, or if it was added at some point in the future, so we're also looking into that. We know it's been there for a long time. It's been functioning that way for many years, but certainly we had a failure at that location. So engineering review of that pipe. So it failed. We notified the PCA, and then we notified downstream, and then we began with the press releases and monitoring of the water quality and the testing within the river. So this kind of goes back. So this would be our first incident in the BAF building in January. So maintenance work was going on in that building. There was a plug in the basement related to the maintenance work going on. The plug came out, filled the lower level about 5 feet. There was very minimal discharge. It was from the overland pipe that were used to pump out of the basement, so very, very limited amount of water was discharged. And then once we got that pumped out, most items, but some of the electronic stuff came back online, so the facility was running. At that time, we declared an emergency because of the costs and getting things put back together. So when we declared the emergency, we were estimating around $200,000. We think actual costs are around $174,000 for that incident. Working with insurance on that to close that. So this is the picture on the left is when the basement the water had come down, where those arrows show up on the pipe or on the columns where the high water mark was in the basement. And the illustrations on the right. It's all cleaned up. Everything's functioning now in the basement. Everything's been repaired. May 29th. So separate buildings, separate processes. So the Biosolids Building, our sludge processing, we had a fire on May 29th. So like our normal process, we ended later in the afternoon. We cleaned up the room. We received process alarms that evening around 9:30 to respond to the fire. We'll get into more of this at the next meeting. Fire department was on site around 9:50 that evening. We did have to shut down power to the UV. The UV power is fed through that building, so that process went down for about 45 minutes until we could reactivate the power due to the fire. Again, we notified the Pollution Control Agency, and then from really when the fire department left, we kind of been back in our court, and we're working with the league and getting everything done with the repairs. So fire marshal did not investigate on this. There's no thought of foul play related to the fire. We're reviewing the investigation report, so we'll have more on that at the next council meeting. We're proposing to discuss more details of the report. We'll talk a little bit more about the alarms also there. And we don't believe from an operational that there was any negligence related to where the fire occurred. So we've been working with the league on all the damaged equipment. So we're looking at new process equipment within the building to replace the equipment that's been damaged. So this is the process of the equipment. So it's different, but it's similar. It uses lime. The solids are mixed together, and it goes through. It's pumped into this reactor where it's heated, and then it comes out. So if you really work from the right side of it, that's really where it starts, where the biosolids comes in there. It's mixed with the lime, and then it goes into the reactor where it's heated up, and then you get your ultimate end product. So a Class A end product. We believe this is one that was contemplated in our facility plan. It's one that we've been looking at. We believe this is a different process than the one that we have out there. It still uses lime, but it meets our Class A EQ. The equipment's been, anytime we buy new equipment, we're looking at 20-year projections, so we've sized it to make sure that we can accommodate growth into the future. We believe that it'll operate at less time until you get really to that end of that growth period, and it'll be better for the environment due to the energy. So this equipment has been ordered. It's 4 to 7 months before we would get the equipment, so we're going through the design right now. We've got the equipment identified, so we'll have like an installation out for bid type contract that'd be coming forward to council as we continue to work forward through this. Cost, so let's, for where we're at with the fire. So the new equipment, let's look at the left column. So that's where we're at with the left column. The middle column is the cost to replace the existing. So this would be what would be, we would say, covered by the insurance, just related to the equipment that was damaged within the fire. And then the third column on the right is the cost of the equipment out of the facility study in 2015. And you can see the note when it's inflated up to 2021 when the equipment was proposed to be replaced. So the new process equipment is about $4.2 million. There's other items, a scrubber. We have cleaning of the facility, a new blower, new chemical feed system. We have contingencies in there, so we're looking at $4.5 million for the new equipment. Insurance, so just to replace what we have out there. It really didn't look at expansion. It would just be what's in place. So it's really within about $100,000. We're still working through that with the league to get, if everything is 100% covered, or if there's some things that maybe there's more of a salvage dollar, but we don't think there's going to be significant differences on that. And then the third column is really where so $3.5 million is roughly what we had estimated in 2021, but there's other items that were damaged in the fire that weren't anticipated of being replaced at that time in the plan. So where we're at with costs and funding, so pretreatment, 25, 45, in this range probably to get the pretreatment facility and the wiring and some of the controllers back operational. The incident at the BAF building is about $175,000. And this, because we don't have the hauling costs and that type of stuff, it could be in the range to $6 million related to this claim. We have portable equipment that should be coming in the next week and a half, so we know we have approval. We're hauling to Met Council, so if something were to happen where they would no longer take us, we have a temporary process set up so we continue to process sludge. So we have that going, so that we'll be getting that equipment set up so we can still produce our products. So from our insurance perspective, so really our maximum out of pocket is $100,000. So then there's the stuff that won't be covered by insurance, so that's taken in that difference. So that's at $100,225. I think we're still working at that, so I think that numbers can vary. But right now we're looking at $200,000 out of pocket for this. And then related to this, they're wondering, are we going to see a big insurance spike in cost premium? Related to this property stuff, there's no experience modification related to how the plan is set up within the pool related to League of Minnesota Cities. Certainly, if they look at this broad and they see a lot of incidents across wastewater plants, certainly the whole pool could see that. But right now, as an individual city, we're not proposing to see an increase related to the incidents. So really, it's kind of a summary of kind of where we're at. So, what happened after the first one? So after the first one, before we go in to do any maintenance work, we had another layer of engineering review, so we can't proceed from a staff perspective until we have an engineering review related to the work that's going to be performed. We'll be looking at, when we look at the improvements related to the fire, so, fire rating, fire monitoring, suppression, other type of equipment, looking at, is that something that is in more modern facilities? Is that something that's required? Should be something that would be included. Again, going through the fix related to the break of the most recent event on that pipe, looking at that and seeing how that should be put back together, so we have a good permanent solution, permanent fix there. Then other things we've discussed too would be, so one would be for council to consider and potentially an independent operational audit. So it really looks at our policies, procedures, and practices, and just make sure that we're up to the industry standards. We're operating the plant as best we can. So that would be one item as a recommendation. And then certainly with the changes now with the BAF, certainly that was one of the big items in our facility plan that was worked on in 2015 and adopted in 2016. So it's not like there's not been any work done out there. So we have the well was replaced, the UV, the one that was really troubling, and we're having some issues. That equipment has been replaced. So certainly there's been improvements to the facility. So that would be another item, and then depending on anything else, we would find out if there's other potential recommended actions. So we think they're separate and unrelated, so we haven't seen like any correlation of cause, like, okay, did the fire now cause this issue in pretreatment? We're not seeing that related to any of the incidents. We think they're all separate and unrelated. So they're still serious. We want to, continue to look to mitigate our risks in the future to make sure, downstream we're doing the best we can to operate the facility, to make sure that there are no, minimize no releases in the future. That's certainly a goal of every wastewater plant operation, is that you don't have those types of things come up, and that's certainly what we're trying to operate the facility as. And then I'd just say, the plant is running. It was majorly upgraded in 2002, so it's not at its end of its life. We're making improvements to the facility. There's going to be more improvements in the future to keep it operating. Well, there'll be more investments into it, but it's still operating. So from here, we're looking at some tours to show kind of where some of the incidents were, and kind of so you get a visual of what's going on up at the plant. And then on the 17th, so that'd be this Friday, July 13th, and then on the July 17th, we'll have another update related to the fire and the report and the investigation on the fire. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bennett. Questions from the council? Yes, Councilor Colby.
If I understand your report correctly, I think two conclusions can be made. First of all, you don't believe that the current facility is going to fail.
That is correct, I think.
Okay, good. Thank you. Second, you don't believe that the management out there is deficient in any way.
I do not believe that is the case at all.
Okay. And then I would like to add a comment that I think your recommendation for an independent operational audit is a very good one. Thank you.
Any other questions from the council? Councilor DeLong.
If I was troubled by the submersible pumps failing, submersible pumps means they're made to be underwater, like somebody's sump pump at home. So why did they fail? Were they getting clogged? Was it the electronic controls upstairs? Or have we found out why?
Mayor, members of council, so we're looking, it's mainly due to the controls, and there's valving down in the basement that shuts them related to check valves. We believe some of those components became buoyant when they're underwater, and then it would not allow it to be pumped to the next building, so it would just pump in a circle and not actually pump to the next process location. And until we could get down there and get that figured out and get it closed, that's, we believe, why they failed.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? No. I have one. So we're trying to get this information out as broadly as possible, so our Northfield community is more likely to read the newspaper or listen to KYMN or to be on the website. And I know through the process we've been communicating, as you stated early on, with the other governmental jurisdictions. Will we also be, how will we be getting this? This report was really well done. It was very comprehensive. Thank you. It was great. How can we be getting this out to other individuals that don't live within our community but were clearly affected, especially by the pipe break and the discharge to the river?
I think that's something we've talked about from a communications perspective, and we're exploring different options to not only reach the governmental entities, but lake associations, those types of items, so they can get the same type of information. So we'll find a way to get them that information so they have the same information the residents and council do.
Great. Mr. Martig?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. We did build, obviously, a communication list through this incident, so we've got contact information to all of them. And we are either, like specifically, like even on tonight's presentation, we're contemplating we're looking at editing this part of the presentation down to be able to get out to our own community so that it's kind of specific, so people have quick access to it, to be able to see it. Also, maybe then sharing that with our partners. There might be some direct communications to that audience downstream that might be a little different from our local constituents too. So we're going to take that into consideration where we might be doing some separate outreach, but working with our communications department on that and closely with Dave too. So if you have ideas too, we're open to hearing that, but we are exploring ways to get the word out.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from the council?
Just
Yes,
one quick
Councilor
comment.
Ness, yes.
I would like the council to consider taking Mr. Bennett and everybody else who might be directly involved in the process with the emergencies to be relieved of other committee assignments that they have right now, so they can focus on getting the plant up and running. They don't have all the extra meetings. The staff might just get burnt out. It may mean that some strategic items get postponed 6 months. But I think it's very important to keep morale at a high level right now, and that just my suggestion, and I don't know how to move that forward, but.
Mayor Pownell.
Did you say my name?
Yes.
Oh, yes. All right, Councilor Zweifel.
So that has happened to some degree already. So for the climate initiative, Justin was pulled, and we reduced the number of meetings for the climate action committee to 1 a month after this next meeting. Right? So, I mean, we have been doing some of that organically. So I'm not sure how far we want to take that.
Councilor Colby? Oh, Councilor Ness?
But that was with 2 incidents. Now there's 3. So I'm just trying to relieve some burden.
So I think Mr. Martig and Mr. Bennett, if you could be thinking about that, and if you need additional direction from the council in terms of how this, if it would affect the workload on other strategic initiatives. We just talked about some targets tonight. If there's other adjustments that we need to make that you need official council direction on, I'm confident that you'll bring that to our attention, because obviously we all care about our city staff and how well they're doing through this. I saw firsthand people working around the clock and really dedicated to finding solutions to this. And I just really appreciate the work of all those that were on scene through the night and others that were pulled in to help out with this incident. So we have great staff, and we really want to ensure that, yes, they don't get burned out and they enjoy their work here. But if there's additional direction that is somehow needed from the council, I would look to the 2 of you to bring that to the council if you need some sort of formal direction. Councilor Colby?
Well, we might be able to achieve what Brad articulated by simply leaving it to the discretion of Mr. Martig and our Public Works Director. If they need to skip a meeting, they should have that discretion.
Yeah. All right. So it is 9:30 now, 9:31. If there are additional questions, or unless you would like to extend the meeting? No. All right, so if there are additional questions or information that you need, please forward those to Mr. Martig or Mr. Bennett. Is there a motion to adjourn? Councilor Nakasian? And Councilor Colby?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.